I'm RussiaB4.
And I'm Tad Friday.
Today we will be talking about three major topics. A phone call between President Putin and Mr. Trump, a blast from the past reliving the change from the USSR to Russia, and the radioactive contamination of local environments. We'll be back after the break. Good evening. This is Russian News on Channel 9. I'm Catherine Lazenby. Today we will be talking about three major topics. A phone call between President Putin and Mr. Trump, a blast from the past, reliving the change from the USSR to Russia, and the radioactive contamination of local environments. We'll be back after the break. Our President, Mr. Putin, had to handle the incompetent Americans again. Of course, he handled it very well. President Putin had a phone call with Mr. Trump, the U.S. President, just recently. The U.S., once again, is skeptical of our great country. They think we Russians hacked the election. And the Americans wanted this phone call to be sort of an attack on the Russians about the hack. Over the phone call, President Putin did something amazing. He convinced President Trump to stop talking about the election scandal. The subject was dropped temporarily, and instead of an attack, Mr. Trump talked to President Putin about policies for aiding foreign countries. The policy we intend to maintain is to try not to intervene. Countries have a way of figuring things out, just like we did. President Putin is being very conscious of what is going on and hopes to see something positive come out of North Korea and Venezuela.
Hello, I'm Tad Friday, and I will be giving you a blast from the past this evening, which is the fall of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union fell in December of 1991, marking the end of the Cold War. The last leader of the Soviet Union was Mikhail Gorbachev. Gorbachev, who came in office in 1985 when the USSR was in economic and political trouble, tried to fix this problem with a two-step plan. First was to let everyone criticize the government so he could improve it, and second was to open trade with more people, but his plan didn't give results, and the countries in the Soviet Union started to split away. The day that marked the end of the Soviet Union was when a group of hardline communists took Gorbachev hostage and declared he was too sick to govern, which sent the Union into a bunch of riots and protests. And when the hostage takers tried to get the military to quell the protests, they rebelled, saying they would refuse to attack a fellow countryman. After 3 days, the hostage takers surrendered, knowing that they needed the help of the military to keep the Soviet Union alive. A couple months later, in 1991, the Union collapsed entirely. Gorbachev resigned from office, and the Soviet Union was replaced by the Commonwealth of Independent Republics.
Good evening, I'm RussiaB4, and I'll be bringing you news on radioactive pollution in Russia. Currently, Russia is dealing with issues on radioactive waste. Home to a market-driven economy, Russia has big plans for rapid expansion in its industries. The main sources of radioactive pollution are similar to those in Western countries. It is apparent that substantial areas of Russian land and surface waters are contaminated with radioactive material. When the Soviet Union collapsed, a vast store of nuclear fuel was abandoned in the Russian Arctic. An environmental disaster waiting to happen. Today, an international cleanup has begun. Nuclear changes recognize no borders, and it is in our common interest to deal with nuclear waste now rather than leaving the problems to future generations, said the Norwegian Foreign Minister Bård Brende. The nuclear waste storage, located about 55 kilometers away from Norway, about 22,000 spent nuclear elements. On July 11, 2001, Russian President Vladimir Putin approved a law that clears the way for Russia to import approximately 22,000 tons of nuclear waste over a 10-year period. The storage, processing, and the disposal of the waste could generate as much as $20 to $21 billion for the Russian government, money that may be used to help clean up Russia's domestic nuclear waste problem.
That's all for tonight. Good night, Russia.